Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Beck. I am a senior in nutritional science, and today I'm going to speak a little bit about the culture and history of Austria. So, as a quick introduction, Austria is located in Central Europe, north of Italy and Slovenia. It's south of Czech Republic and is a landlocked country, which I will discuss more about later. The northern and eastern portions of the country are the most populated, like where the capital of Vienna is. It actually became a small republic after World War I, and then in World War II, it was actually taken over by Nazi Germany. And after being annexed in 1945, it was kind of unclear what their independence would look like for about 10 years. And then in 1955, a treaty was signed that made them independent. In 1999, so honestly not a whole lot long ago, they became a part of the European Union. So quick rundown of culture. Like I said, the country is landlocked and is bordered by a lot of other countries. So their culture is greatly influenced by that. So most of the people there are multilingual. I will talk a little bit more about their languages later. But a lot of people can't speak multiple languages just because they are so close to a lot of different countries. So some of the influences include German, Hungarian, Czech, and Northern Italian. This doesn't just influence languages, but it also influences food and dress and basic traditions. Most people, like I said, live in the bigger cities like Vienna, and that makes architecture decently important just because they live in larger buildings like apartment buildings, and their architecture is greatly influenced by that. So they also are a country that is taken over by the Alps. So a lot of outdoor sports like skiing and snowboarding have become a very popular thing in Austria. And the majority of the population are conservative Catholics, which makes their traditions a little bit more conservative, and greatly influences the way they dress, the marriages, and although of recently a lot of marriages have become more lenient. People have kids before marriage, and a lot more people are getting divorced. So, as of July of 2017, their population was around 8.7 million people. And the majority of the people are between the ages of 24 and 54. So they're really around that middle age group. It's around 42% of the population. And then the next biggest would be around the 65 and older age range, which is about 19% of their population. And then the majority of their male to female ratios in the age groups are around 1-to-1, so it's pretty split. However, above the age of 55, there are slightly more females. But if you do look at the rates of women living longer than men, it does make a little bit more sense in more developed countries for women to live longer. So like I said before, a lot of people do speak multiple languages in Austria, but the main language is Germany. And then as far as other languages go, there's also Turkish, Serbian, and Croatian, and then other languages kind of make up around 5%. But most of the population speaks German and can even speak many of the other languages. The majority of people in Austria are strictly Austrian. They only have, the majority of them only have both parents of Austrian descent. However, there are, former Yugoslavs, Turks, and Germans that live there, and I will talk about a lot of the refugees later. So, like I said, Roman Catholic is the most popular religion, 73% of the population being that. There's also Protestant, Muslim, Orthodox, and a couple other religions make up around like 11%. And there's also 12% of people say they are not of religion. So their unemployment rate is 10.6, which to them is quite high. They are a pretty well established economy, which I'll detail later. As far as education, they have a lot of public schools, and they require 9 years for children to go to school, but like 16 years is average, which if you count it out, that is around going to university for 4 years after graduating from primary and high school. So it's just a quick lowdown of the population. Like I said, the majority is in that middle age range for both male and female, and then from there on up it gets bigger in the older populations. So their government is a federal parliamentary republic. Like I said, the capital is in Vienna. They also have 9 states. I have their flag there, which they have the colors red and white. And on the next slide, I will detail their coat of arms, which does have their national symbol of the eagle. So their legal system is a civil law system. They have a judicial review of legislative acts by the Constitutional Court. And to detail that legal system and the government, they do have an executive branch, which has the Chief of State, Alexander Van der Bellen, and Head of Government, Chancellor Sebastian Kurz. And he is actually 31 years old, which makes him one of the youngest country leaders in the world. I think he is, in fact, the youngest at this given time. Those two have been recently elected into office within the last year. They also have a cabinet, which is a council of ministers chosen by the president on the advice of the chancellor. And they have a 6-term eligibility with the possibility of a second term, and it has to be an absolute majority vote, and it is possible for them to have a second vote. To continue on with government, the legislative branch is a bicameral federal assembly, which consists of 62 seats, and the members are appointed by state parliaments, and they each receive around 3 to 12 seats, depending on their population, and the members serve around 5 to 6 years. So then their judicial branch is a Supreme Court, and they have 85 judges, which are separated into like 17 different senates of 5 judges each, and they are nominated by the executive branch departments and appointed by the president, and they, like the United States, do serve for life. So the political parties, they have a lot of major political parties and then some minor ones that I didn't list, but some of the major ones: Austrian People's Party, Communist Party of Austria, Freedom Party, the Greens, the New Austria, Pilzlist, and the Social Democratic Party of Austria. And like I mentioned before, they have the coat of arms, which has an eagle in their flag and the colors, and they also have some chains down at the bottom that are breaking, and that represents the liberation from the National Socialist dictatorship. So rundown of their economy, like I said, Austria has a well-developed market economy. However, in recent years, they have seen low economic growth and high unemployment for their normal rates, and 4% of their people are below the poverty line. So the official GDP exchange rate would be 434.1 billion as of 2017, and per capita is around 49,000. And to break that down, 70% of that is in services, 28% in industry, and around 1.2% in agriculture. So they really don't have a whole lot of agriculture. But what they do is grains, potatoes, wine, and fruit. Their wine industry is pretty big. And then as far as the major industries, it's mainly construction, machinery, lumber, and some in tourism. So their exchange rate is around 0.906 euros per US dollar. Because they are in the European Union, they do use the euro. So Austria doesn't have a whole lot of transnational issues. They have in the past had some issues with Italy, specifically like northern Italy, but of recent they don't have a whole lot happening. One of the biggest issues right now is refugees. So the new leadership that has just recently been elected is kind of strict on refugees and proposing to kind of reject most of them. But I have what's listed talks about the how many people are coming from Syria, around 30,000, Afghanistan 20,000. Because they are very close to the Middle East, it'll be interesting to see exactly what plays out as far as their problems with refugees. And because the new leadership has proposed this very strict rules on refugees, there are becoming a lot of protests, and that's one of the pictures that I have listed. Another issue that comes about would be they are kind of a main shipment point for drugs within Central Europe, so they are kind of a point for Asian heroin and South American cocaine that is headed for Western Europe, which is causing a lot of issues. And then back, during World War I and World War II, obviously with like Nazi Germany, that kind of caused a lot of disputes, but those have all really been established by now and have moved past. So cultural dimensions, in Power Distance, they're kind of an independent society, so they support equal rights. They don't really like a lot of control, and communication is pretty direct. They're also a pretty individualized society, so they expect to take care for themselves. They really don't rely a whole lot on other people. They kind of want to do things on their own, and they don't like to be put into certain groups. They're also extremely success-oriented and have like a lot of emphasis on competition and performance. They want to see them do well. They're really high in avoiding uncertainty and kind of they have that need for rules. They can also easily adapt their traditions to change conditions. They've gotten through a lot, like I've said before, with Nazi Germany. They've had to kind of adapt and change to all those different things, and they haven't been independent for a whole long time. And then they have a kind of a high and positive attitude, so they really want like leisure time, and they're very optimistic people. So after looking at all the cultural dimensions, it was kind of interesting to look into their leadership styles. So I didn't really find anything about their word for leadership, but I did find an interesting article talking about what they described as like a coaching leader. So they really, they expect a lot from their team members, and they want to have good direct communication, but also focus on the individual. They want to manage specifically to that individual, and they want to discuss problems with them, which was kind of an interesting take on leadership, and to kind of look at they want to support them, but they also want them to do things on their own. So Austria is kind of an interesting country. It was really interesting to learn about, and I'm curious to see more about their relations with the countries around them. How do they compare in leadership styles and different cultural aspects, because they are very influenced by them. So I would like to see kind of how their leadership styles are influenced, which I didn't dig deep into, but it would be interesting to hear everyone else's presentations about what exactly plays into leadership. And there is my works cited. Thank you guys.